I'm Lemitchel King with the 502nd Air Base Wing Public Affairs Office, and I'm here with the Honorable John Henderson, the Assistant Secretary of the Air Force Installations, Environments, and Energy. I just want to take some time to get your thoughts on the privatized housing here at JBSA, Lackland, and Randolph. Regarding the privatized housing management, what is the Air Force's plan to address the widespread maintenance problems that we've heard about at some of the bases, including here at Joint Base San Antonio? We've heard these are caused in part by the project owner's lack of attention to quickly respond and fixing the health and safety issues at base housing.
Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity to talk about this. There's a lot going on with how we're addressing some of the challenges we're having in privatized housing. First of all, to take us back about a year ago, when we were first getting a pretty good handle on the fact that we had some issues out there, we did 100% health and safety review by the commanders for all of our housing, for all of our residents and all the housing. And that generated about 11,000 in-home visits at the invite of our residents, and that which produced about 5,200 or so, maybe 5,300 life, health, and safety work orders that we immediately went and fixed and worked off. So our first phase was to, one, ensure that we were fixing the immediate problems up front. And the second was essentially going back and making sure that we have systems in place to address problems when they come up. So some of that is just plainly, the Air Force holding ourselves accountable for providing good oversight. What we found in a lot of cases is we just didn't have enough people doing that. So we are adding 219 personnel back into our housing management function across the Air Force. Thanks to a lot of help from Congress, they have approved our funding request for that, and we're moving out on the hiring of those personnel and expect to have those people in position later this year. So some of that was just making sure that we had the resources. The other part was just the process, is making sure that at those key points where we should be providing some oversight, making sure that they're doing quality maintenance for the maintenance workers, making sure that our guys can be there during the change of occupancy inspections to make sure that the house is ready to go for the next resident and that all the issues have been taken care of, and just having the people available to do that was a key part of the resident experience. The other thing we're doing is, in addition to holding ourselves accountable, we did an IG inspection that kind of went back and saw some process and management things that we could do, and we had the feedback from the commanders' inspections, and so that gave us about 51 actions across 5 lines of effort that we're working through to improve the overall management of privatized housing at the Air Force level. Part of that is holding our project owners accountable for what they're supposed to be doing and meeting the terms and conditions of the agreements we've entered into. So that gets back to making sure that we have good maintenance management systems, making sure that the money we are spending on it is going to the right spot, making sure that they're hiring enough qualified personnel to get the job done, and to make sure that we're getting the full lifespan out of the homes that are sitting as part of this ground lease. So that's another piece of this that's very important, and that means that that costs some money to the project, but we're moving out in a lot of ways where we're seeing project owners increase staff, they're increasing training for their staff. We're putting automated maintenance management systems online, which are now being fielded here also at JBSA, so that when they do put in a work order that is transparent, they can see that the work order got put in, and ideally would see the status of that work order as they're going back through it. And the rest of it is just ensuring that the project owner doesn't have to send somebody out to the house 6 times to fix one problem. And so this is about getting the right people on the site and getting it fixed right the first time. So some of those things, some of the bigger things that'll make a difference. We've worked really hard on putting together a resident bill of rights. So some of it's just improving the communications with our residents and making sure that they know what their rights are, making sure that they know where are their responsibilities for being in a privatized house, to ensure that when there are problems, they know to report it, know where to report it, and if they're not being resolved, that there's a system there for them to elevate and come to the housing management office or a housing advocate or their chain of command to get some of those issues resolved. And so these are some of the substantive things we've taken on to make significant change in housing.
Okay, great. So in terms of priority, Can you give us a sense of where the addressing of privatized housing maintenance issues and the focus of ensuring airmen and their families have a safe, healthy home falls on the Secretary and Chief's priority lists?
Yeah, absolutely. I got to tell you, we look at this as a life, health, and safety issue for our airmen and their families. And the health and safety of our airmen and their families is absolutely a top priority for the Secretary and for the Chief and for all the leadership that supports our missions and our airmen. And that's exactly the way we're coming at this. If for some reason or another, through whether it's privatized housing or the dorms that we run or the family housing that we run or the facilities we work in, those facilities have to be safe. They have to provide a healthy environment for where to live and work, and that is absolutely a priority. The fourth part of my title is to work in the safety and occupational health. So we take these things very seriously, and the people that we work with, whether it's a base operations contractor or it's a privatized housing partner, we expect them to provide the service to a standard that's enhancing the health and safety, and it's absolute top priority of the Air Force.
So I understand that you have sat down with our base leadership and visited our housing management office while you were here at Joint Base San Antonio. So will you just give us a sense of your overall impression of how privatized housing here locally at JBSA is being run, and maybe some of the issues and challenges that you had talked about today with our leadership?
Right. You know, first of all, my general impression of the team here is the team is working really hard with limited resources under difficult conditions, especially with historic homes at Randolph Air Force Base. Those are really tough things to work through under the best of conditions. What I've seen is we don't have the best of conditions, and we've been after this. We've been involved in this with our privatized housing owners at both the bases now for over a year, and quite honestly, I thought we'd be a little farther than we are. So while there's a lot of things done that we were talking about, there's a lot of things being worked on a policy level that aren't necessarily visible here out at the base. Quite frankly, it's clear to me we have a lot further to go to improve our resident experience. So in other words, it's nice to see all the work that's being done here on the ground. Unfortunately, I don't think our residents feel like things are improving, which leads me to believe we got a long ways to go. And we got a lot of work to do with our project owners. We can't do it without them. We can do a lot of things in the Air Force, but if our project owners aren't going to step up and do their role and improve the quality of the maintenance they're doing on our homes and improve the quality of customer service, then we still have a lot of work to do. And that's essentially my takeaway from here today.
Absolutely. What resources, and you may have addressed this a little bit earlier, but just maybe go into a little more detail about it, but what resources are available for those airmen and their families who have privatized housing maintenance problems, and they're maybe finding it difficult to get prompt and appropriate attention from the project owner to address and fix the problems? So, you know, what we really want to know is how do and with whom would you recommend that they engage? Yeah.
So first, I think we should give the project owner a chance to know about the problem and fix the problem. They're the ones that have the manning for this. They're the ones that have the resources for this. So the first thing is to go to the project owner's housing office or go online to their maintenance management site and let them know that there's a problem and get that into the system. If those problems aren't getting addressed through the routine system, then we have an Air Force Housing Management Office, which is where we're sitting right now, where we can go to an Air Force, part of the Air Force oversight entity that makes sure that the project owner is doing their job. And if that's not working, I think that, in my opinion, the best place to go is to go see your first sergeant, go see your chain of command. Let someone in the chain of command know that one of the support systems that's supposed to ensure that you have a safe and healthy place to live and work is not working. And they have a good idea of where to engage on that. We also have a 1-800 number at AFCEC, that housing hotline that we put on. It's a 24/7 hotline that goes right into the people at the Air Force Civil Engineering Center who oversee these partnerships. And when we get a call into there, they immediately address what's wrong with the system, that the routine stuff isn't being handled routinely. So that's another resource that's available out there. And part of that 219 people that we're adding this year, We're going to add a designated housing advocate that does nothing but ensure that the customer service experience for our residents is what those terms and conditions and the agreements are being met, and that the residents have someone that they can call, kind of one button to push if things aren't going right, and they have an advocate that works directly for the wing commander and is hearing their issues and ensuring that their issues are getting addressed appropriately inside the terms and conditions, so we don't have to, everything doesn't have to be a one-off. The chain of command doesn't have to get involved with every work order that's not getting addressed. That'll be one person to kind of handle that. So we have a number of resources out there, so it's not that the issues won't come up. A lot of this is old infrastructure, and we expect roofs to leak every once in a while and pipes to back up a little bit. But the real problem is where those issues go unaddressed, and that's an issue for us, and that's what we're trying to get resolved, is make sure that the system's in place to solve those problems.
Well, so we're at the end, but I do want to ask you what advice for action you would offer to those airmen and their families who are hesitant to speak up. And I know we do hear that a lot. Right. Sometimes, but they're hesitant to speak up about the housing issues, and it could be due to fear of repercussions. What do you do?
First of all, my bottom line is I would say speak up. There's a lot of us working really hard out there to identify these challenges and fix the problems, and sometimes we can't solve problems we don't know about. So for whatever one of those resources that any of our residents feel comfortable with, I encourage them to tell somebody, speak up. And I say also do it without fear of reprisal or repercussions. If there's some kind of fear and reprisal or repercussions out there, then they use one of those resources. Call the hotline, go talk to their chain of command, go to the housing office, go get an open door policy with your command chief or the wing commander. We have a group of great leadership who really want to resolve these issues. If they're not getting resolved because of fear of reprisal, then that's a whole different issue. That's not a housing issue, that's a leadership issue. And whether that's the leadership inside the housing management office, the privatized owner's office, because we've heard some of those claims, or inside the leadership issue chain of command, let your voice be heard. Because those are two issues. We have a housing issue now, and then we have a reprisal issue, and we want to resolve both of them. On behalf of the Secretary and the Chief, I would just say that types of reprisal, acts of reprisal, hinted reprisal, any permutation that are absolutely unacceptable in our Air Force. And whether it's coming from inside the Air Force or those who are working for the Air Force. And at the end of the day, I'll hold out there, we've got a great Inspector General system. If you feel like this system is not working for you, and there's going to be repercussions for you for reporting these things, then I would say go see your local Inspector General. And they've done a really good job throughout this process to ensure that any claims of reprisal we have had, they investigate every one of those. So, but anyway, sitting in silence doesn't help us to resolve some of these issues, and both of these issues, whether it's addressing health and safety issues in our homes, or whether it's reprisal, we need to address them both, and we need to address them both aggressively.
Okay. All right, well, that's all I have. You have any final thoughts you want to share?
I would just say that where we're at right now with housing is a critical spot. We've been working on this, working on a number of initiatives for over the past year, and we're now just starting to get traction on some of these. So if I had any message to leave our residents here with, keep the faith. While there's been some small movement out in the neighborhoods with regard to getting more maintenance staff on and getting more oversight of that maintenance staff on, we've probably seen a little bit of that. We've seen some electronic maintenance management stuff come on. Just be aware there's a lot of other significant actions on the policy side. We're getting great help from Congress with the housing reforms initiatives in the 2020 National Defense Authorization Act. We're relooking the finances on some of our projects to make sure that there's money and resources in there for long-term recapitalization. We're totally revamping the performance incentive fees to incentivize our partners for better outcomes. We're involving the chain of command, providing some extra authorities so that they have more say in how the budgets are run and how disputes are resolved. along with the Bill of Rights and a number of other things. So there's a lot of great initiatives that are going to really improve the long-term health of our privatized housing management and have impacts on the ground. It's just that I would understand that there's some frustration out there because it's not manifesting itself into visible change on the ground. But I'm here to say that change is coming. Have some faith, and I'm out here to acknowledge that we certainly have a long way to go yet also, but there's a great team of people that are working very hard to make this better for our families. So.